I have owned the OnePlus Open for about 3 weeks now, and they've been split between great experiences and stupid software bugs. Let's go over my pros and cons so far. So the first thing on my list is the build quality. I feel like OnePlus slash Oppo have really done their homework in designing a great phone. From small details such as the small gap right here, which does not mean that the phone doesn't close flush, it does. But they kind of made a little indentation which lets your fingers grab and open it even easier. It even has a softer or a weaker magnet holding it, which is more than strong enough to hold it closed, but it's soft enough where it lets you open it easily again. The other part of the opening and closing mechanism, the hinge, is also very smooth. It's my favorite of any of the foldables that I've tried so far. It's smooth all the way across and also provides that nice snap at the end, which I do like. But it still lets you hold it in pretty good angles for when you want to use the flex mode. My next point, I guess, kind of continues with the build quality, and that's the weight. So they've done a really great job reducing the weight on this phone. I mean, the fact that they got it to pretty much match the heaviest of these standard phones is a big deal. That's a big step in the right direction, and it's not the biggest difference when compared to a Z Fold 5, but even then, it does feel lighter, quite a bit lighter, and I think it's because it's also a bit wider, so it spreads the weight out a bit more. And then obviously, if you compare it to the Pixel Fold, the weight is substantially lighter and a lot more comfortable to use, and you get less fatigue using the phone. Next on my list is the wired charging, and so this is the best wired charging I've used on any phone. I haven't had any phones actually charge faster. 67 watts is the fastest I've used, and it makes such a big difference. Even when compared to the 45 watts on the S23 Ultra that I've used, it feels quite a bit faster, which is awesome because I feel like I'm never really charging it. So I plug it in like when I go to take a shower. By the time I'm out, I have enough battery to pretty much last me another 24 hours without any issues. For comparison, the Z Fold 5 and Pixel Fold are charging at 25 to 30 watts. And you feel the difference. Next, let's jump into the cameras and specifically the versatility of this camera system, this camera array. And I was a bit skeptical because it came with a 3x zoom lens or telephoto lens. I like to be able to reach as far as possible with the phone cameras, so I really love when they have the 5x lens. And so I'm already thinking in my head that this is just gonna be about as good, maybe a little bit better because it has a bigger sensor, maybe a little bit better than the Z Fold 5's 3x telephoto lens. But using the 3x telephoto lens, I get the experience that it behaves more similarly to a 5x lens, and it's actually more versatile than I was expecting. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they went with larger and I would say overall better sensors in the ultra wide and telephoto. They even went with a better sensor on the for the main sensor, in my opinion. But specifically, the one that's pretty much not arguable at this point is that the telephoto and the ultra wide are just way better sensors than what are found in the Pixel Fold and the Z Fold 5, and that provides just a better versatility, better range from jumping from one lens to the other and reaching out to a max point of let's say 6x. So I guess the tech that they use to get to the 6x really does make a difference because it honestly feels almost as clear as the 3x. So cropping into that center or whatever tech they're using, I forgot what they called it, really does make a difference and provides a good result. Now diving a bit deeper into certain parts of the camera app, they do have interesting modes like the X-Pan. For me is awesome because it's a unique mode, a unique view of what you're seeing. You're not in the usual 16:9 or 4:3, which we are accustomed to already with phones nowadays. It's this extremely wide aspect ratio, and yeah, you could probably get the same results by just cropping in your 4:3 photo, but at least for me, it's a lot easier to line up the shot properly when you have the viewfinder showing you what you're going to take a picture of. So even though it's probably not the most useful Camera mode, X-Pan to me is really nice, provides some cool pictures. And then also some of the functionality on the camera app I find really cool, like zooming in instead of having it with the lenses, you know, 0.5 or 0.6 to the 1x and then to the 3x. It just has the plus or minus bar, and some might like to jump a bit more, but if I'm zooming in, I'd rather zoom in slowly or at a steady pace to where I want to zoom into. It provides a more professional look. And you know, Samsung does offer that in their Pro Video mode, so it's not like it's this the only phone that has it, but I think it's really cool that they have it on the basic video mode on this phone. The phone also has great haptic feedbacks, and not necessarily like in the sense that it feels like like a strong haptic feedback like the Pixels do. It's maybe a little bit better than Samsung's in my opinion. But what stands out to me about the haptic feedbacks is mainly this small feature that I really love, and that's when I'm holding the volume button to increase the volume quickly. It gives me a little haptic feedback every time it goes up one notch, and so that kind of lets me know that, you know, it's working and going up fast, and gives me a chance to stop when I want it to, instead of, you know, the volume running away and going to max without me noticing. So it's not a big deal, it's not a huge one, but small touches like that really do improve the user experience. And I think that, you know, certain haptic feedbacks in that sense do provide a better experience. Another one is just when you're in apps, when you get to edges of things, you get a haptic feedback letting you know that, hey, you reached the end of the app or the page or whatever it might be. Next, I want to talk about the facial recognition. So I don't know how accurate it is. I can't attest to, you know, it's this accurate. It's only wrong once every 40,000 attempts. But one thing it does have is speed. When I turn on the screen, it pretty much immediately sees or recognizes me and unlocks it. Compared to Samsung's, pretty much any Samsung, I feel like their facial recognition is a bit slower, and so I have to wait about 1 second before it recognizes me and unlocks it. But with the OnePlus Open, it's really quick. Plus, it also has a haptic feedback for when it is unlocked, which I don't think that every phone has, but it's very useful, letting you know that, you know, it was either correct or incorrect. Moving on, OnePlus has one of my favorite ways to use shortcuts on this phone. My favorite one, and to me the most useful one, is to have the flashlight quickly accessible, so when I'm in a dark place I could just quickly turn on the flashlight and see. And OnePlus's version is pretty much swiping your finger in a V pattern while the phone is off, doesn't even matter. So when I swipe my finger in the V manner, you get a little haptic feedback and a little tone letting you know that the shortcut was successful. And in this one with the V, I turn on the flashlight, do it again, it turns it off. So it's very useful, easy to get to, and you can actually do this without even looking, because I mean, you already instinctively know where the screen is. So just make a V pattern on the screen and it's gonna turn on the flashlight for you. Next is arguably the most important feature on the OnePlus Open, and kind of what sets this phone apart from the others, and that's the open canvas. So in terms of multitasking, I have found this to be my favorite by far. It lets you use the apps in basically the full screen aspect ratio, just slightly shrunken down, so it has a bit of an edge of the next app. You can basically have 3 apps open, all of them in very useful sizes, and quickly just tap each one to switch between apps. I already said it's the best multitasking version that I've used on any of the folding phones. Unfortunately, this is probably not one that the other ones could copy, so it's going to be limited to OnePlus using that style of multitasking. But you know, maybe the other 2 competitors can come up with something similar that is just different enough where they won't get into any legal troubles. Another great design aspect of the OnePlus Open is the screen size, and it being a 6.3 inch screen is that nice middle ground from a small phone to a large phone on the outside screen, and it provides a very comfortable experience in terms of typing, viewing articles and everything. You could literally be happy just using the outside screen. And in my experience of these past 3 weeks, this outside screen has been so enjoyable. I really only opened the phone to, either multitask or to view videos in a larger format. The thing that makes it I would say the best outside screen is the fact that it's the same aspect ratio as standard phones. Now, that's not to say that I don't use the inner screen and that I don't enjoy using the inner screen. I obviously do. It's a great screen. A couple of things they did with the inner screen that make it amazing are they went with a it's not completely matte, but it's a reduced glare screen protector, which does reduce the amount of crease that you would see when the light reflects on it. But besides that, the crease is so unnoticeable when the phone is open that it just, honestly, I don't even notice a crease at all when I'm using it. Doesn't matter when I'm using it, where I'm using it. I'm sure outside, which I haven't had the need to, but outside I could probably notice it a bit more. But I mean, just as soon as the screen is on, that crease is gone, disappeared. You are not gonna see it, and it provides such a great experience just having it there available with, I mean, this is just the best screen. So the crease, I don't even notice it when I pass my finger through it when scrolling. I definitely don't notice it when I'm viewing things. It's a great screen, inner screen. I might like the colors a little bit better on Samsung still. I would still say that this is the best inner screen just because of the crease. And to continue with the screen, the brightness is really good. It's super bright and provides a great viewing experience when it's working properly. I'll get into that one on the con side, but basically when that HDR is going and you're watching a movie or something, I mean, when something bright comes on the screen, I mean, you pretty much need sunglasses to see it. It's really good, and that's obviously indoors. If you're outdoors, it's just gonna feel, normal because you're contrasting with the sun. So the brightness is really good, again, when it's working properly. So with that said, let's move over to the cons. And that brings me to the first con on my list, which is the screen brightness. I don't know if it's a sensor or some sort of software bug, but it seems to want to stay dim, at least more on the recent side. It seems to want to stay dim, and I have to mess with the auto brightness, like toggle it on and off, and then move the brightness bar a little bit, and then eventually it gets back to normal. But I'm not sure what's up with it. It's definitely a software bug because when I watch videos or when I mess with it and get it back to normal, it's super bright. So it's not like it's something physical that is going bad. Not sure what is up with that bug, but it's pretty annoying. The next con I would say is the button placement. So one of the pros was the build quality and the design of it, and I still stand by that. The only build quality / design thing I have an issue with is the button placement. The power button is, it's an on all right place, but if the power button is gonna be that high up, then the volume rocker is gonna have to be put below it, kind of how Pixel does it. If they want to stay with the power button in the bottom, I feel like everything should have been shifted downward, because even the Z Fold 5, which is a little bit taller, still managed to put the buttons in a place where I can reach it with my thumb without having to adjust significantly. With this phone, I have to adjust a little bit to get to the lower button, and then I have to adjust a lot, like pretty much get my hand out of the bottom to use the top button, the volume up button. So that's just something that I wouldn't expect, especially with a phone that's so well designed. I wouldn't expect that type of design flaw, I guess I would call it. I mean, everything is just so great on it, and then they go ahead and place the volume rocker all the way at the top of the phone. It's a small one because, how often are you messing with the volume? I mean, for me, maybe a couple times a day, not a lot. But it's still something that every time you do go to raise the volume or sometimes even lower the volume, it just, you notice it. So one of the pros was the shortcuts, specifically the flashlight shortcut. And unfortunately, there is one shortcut that I'm going to place in the con. So anytime that you start the camera app with one of the shortcuts, whether it being the circle on the screen or the shortcut on the lock screen, I've noticed that when the phone wouldn't recognize when it's in landscape view. So yeah, you can still take the picture, and all the button placements on the camera app are basically the same, except that they don't twist to face you. So you could theoretically get the same results. It's not going to affect the results at all. The issue that came up with me, which I found very annoying, is that it saved it in the vertical mode. So I would have to go into the camera, the Photos app, and rotate it, edit it, rotate it to the right, to the landscape view. And with this phone, it backs up to Google really fast when compared to Google Photos really fast when compared to Samsung. Samsung waits until it's charging. This phone doesn't. It just sends it right away, which I actually do like. But when you mix that with having to edit and rotate the photo, it would then upload 2 photos to Google Photos, and I would have to go in and delete the vertical one. So it was a bit annoying having to do that. And that's another software thing where it needs to, I guess, unlock the gyroscope or whatever to recognize that it's in landscape view when one of the shortcuts is used for the camera. So it's not like a physical defect or anything, but it's still something that is on my cons list. And continue with the camera, there is another con where I have noticed that it has some autofocus inconsistencies. So it's not like it does it every time, but it has happened to me where I take a photo and either the wrong thing is in focus or only a part of it is in focus. So I feel like with this phone, you have to be a little more careful when taking photos. Take your time. Either let it sit there for like a split second and take the photo, or tap on the subject you want to focus on to take the photo. Don't let the autofocus just do its own thing every time. A good safety precaution on this phone is to take multiple photos rather than just relying on the phone taking one good one. But when the photos do focus correctly, the results are actually very nice. The next item on my cons list is the typing. And immediately after, turning on the phone, setting it up, and using the phone, I did notice that the typing felt a little bit delayed. So I would tap the button and the feedback and the letter appearing on the screen was enough of a delay where I noticed it. And I found it weird. So I had to double check myself on is this normal, or does this have an actual delay? So I went back to my Google Pixel and my Z Fold 5 and I tested them out, and sure enough, this phone has a slight delay when typing. It's something you could quickly get used to. It's just a matter of ignoring the haptic feedback and the visually seeing the letter on the screen. Just keep typing and it's gonna get it right. But it does provide that little doubt on your brain while you're typing, so it does slow me down a little bit. Again, it's not something that's physical. It's another software optimization bug probably, so something that OnePlus can possibly fix on this phone. So the next one is a bit harder to really call a con, but I am putting it on there. But that's the lack of wireless charging. So the reason I think it's hard to really call it a con is because I bought the phone knowing that it doesn't have wireless charging. It's not like I bought it thinking that it did and then it came and it didn't. It's out in the open, and it doesn't have wireless charging. But I would consider it a con because especially if you're like me and you have a pretty good system set up for wireless charging. You have stands pretty much in every desk. You even have a wireless charger in your backpack for when you travel. It's nice to use wireless charging. It's very convenient. Just plop it on the charger and just forget about it and pick it up when you need it. And especially charging overnight, there's no real need to charge at 67 watts for 8 hours. So it's going to charge, even at the slowest charging pace, it's going to charge, I think it's 4 hours for a 5 amp or 5 watt charging. So it's going to charge before you wake up either way. So if you're really into wireless charging, it is going to be a con, but it's something you could quickly get used to, especially since the wired charging is so fast that it basically, you forget that you have to charge it. You just plug it in where you're doing something, you come back and it's done. So it does provide some relief there, the fact that it's so fast in wired charging, but I do like my wireless charging. And the last item on my cons list is that you're limited to having 4 apps across, especially in the favorite apps. I like to have 5. That's what I'm used to. I have 2 messaging apps with the browser, camera, and phone. That's been my setup since I can remember. So the fact that you're limited to 4 apps on this phone with no way of changing it that I know of, I don't see why it doesn't have 5 apps. It just seems like a no-brainer to have 5 apps. Even the Pixel, which is less customizable than Samsung, allows 5 apps. 6 with the screen open, but that's just a little weird. And then obviously the ultimate winner in amount of apps going across is Samsung, which I think you could take it all the way up to 9, something ridiculous. The fact that it's limited to 4 apps is definitely something to get used to, and one of my cons, since I've been used to 5 apps for pretty much my entire Android life. Overall, I believe that OnePlus delivered on what the industry needed. It wasn't to be the best overall folding phone in the category, but more in line to improve on the weak points of the form factor. And also to prove that Samsung and Google don't have a leg to stand on when they claim that the form factor is to blame on some of their limitations. Hopefully this carries over to the next generation of foldables so that we, the consumers, have the best possible products that our money could buy. Because unfortunately, I'm still not convinced that's the case. Thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.